That plastic card sitting in your wallet right now is actually the modern version of an ancient weapon. And no, I'm not exaggerating. Thousands of years before Wall Street, in an era when Rome couldn't even dream of existing, the Persians understood this. Swords take land, but money keeps that land. And they didn't just understand it. They built the first global financial system history had ever seen. Every financial instrument the modern world uses, central bank, tax system, standard currency, strategic reserve, all of it comes from the Persians. Money doesn't speak. History speaks. And today history will tell us a dangerous truth. Wealth is built not with swords, but with systems. 550s BC. Cyrus the Great completed his final conquests, 40% of the world's population in his hands, a massive empire from Babylon to Egypt, from Anatolia to India. But there was a problem. Every region had its own currency, its own measures, its own tax system. Babylon collected grain, Lydia used gold, Egypt levied agricultural taxes. Total chaos. Cyrus was a brilliant commander, but not a financial engineer. The system worked, but barely. And empires, just like companies, collapse when accounting can't keep up with growth. You win in battle, but you lose in the ledgers. History is full of proof of this. After Cyrus's death, cracks appeared. Governors were corrupt. Taxes were vanishing. Border provinces were writing their own rules. If the empire was going to survive, it needed structure, predictability, discipline. And just when collapse was about to begin, one man came and changed everything. When Darius I ascended to the throne, he needed to stabilize the empire. The answer, a systematic, measurable, unified approach to money and power. In other words, imperial finance. His first move was radical. He divided the entire empire into administrative regions called satrapies. Each satrapy was assigned precise, fixed tax quotas based on its wealth and population. No more arbitrary tribute. Obligations were known, predictable, meticulously recorded. Does your tax bill seem arbitrary today? Think of a 5th century BC farmer. Persia had invented the concept of fixed assessment. Congratulations. Welcome to the world's first bureaucratic tax system. But the real revolution. Darius understood that trust is money. A diverse empire couldn't function with dozens of currencies, so he introduced the gold daric, one of the most influential currencies in human history. The daric wasn't just a coin, it was a promise. 95.8% gold purity, 8.4 grams standard weight. From Egypt to India, everyone could use the same currency. For the first time, true liquidity emerged. Merchants, soldiers, tax collectors, everyone used the same medium of exchange. The daric was so reliable that the Greeks, Persia's enemies, even used it in trade. In a sense, it was the world's first reserve currency, the predecessor of the British pound and the US dollar. When your enemies use your currency, you're doing something right. Money doesn't speak, history speaks. And the daric spoke for centuries. Today wars break out over the dollar. But in Persian times, wars were prevented because of the daric. Power now belonged to whoever had money, not whoever had an army. But what good is money if it can't move? Darius built the Royal Road, 2,700 kilometers long. A relay station every 20 to 30 kilometers. Couriers reached Sardis from Susa in 7 to 9 days. This speed wasn't seen again until the railroad. Messages, taxes, bullion, orders. Everything passed through this highway of control. Infrastructure equals power. It always has been. Today it's fiber optic cables, satellite systems, submarine data lines. The label has changed, the logic is the same. Whoever controls information and goods controls global power. China knows this. The US knows this. Persia knew it 2,500 years ago. Behind the walls of Persepolis, the imperial treasuries overflowed with tons of gold and silver. These weren't decorative piles. They were strategic reserves, insurance against war, capital for public works, leverage over rebellious governors. The Persians understood this. A powerful treasury is a geopolitical weapon, not because it buys luxury, because it buys time. When war broke out, when a governor rebelled, when famine struck, the king didn't panic. He opened the treasury. Wealth wasn't for display, it was for survival. Today, Norway, Saudi Arabia, China have sovereign wealth funds. The US, on the other hand, relies more on deed than reserves, a choice the Persians would have found reckless. Persian logic was simple: prepare for crisis before the crisis. Within this system, something subtler was happening. Persia had discovered the incentive structure of empire finance. Satraps were rewarded for loyalty, punished for corruption. Local elites received credits to keep regions stable. Temple economies were integrated into state finance. The empire ruled not by crushing differences, but by harmonizing them. A multicultural empire held together by ledgers rather than swords. While the Greeks were raising philosophers, the Persians were raising accountants. And guess which one lasted longer? The satrapies, the Daric, the royal road, the treasuries. Together they created a system that was more than political. It was continental-scale economic architecture. And it worked. It worked so well that subsequent empires copied Persia's model. The Greeks mocked Persian luxury but adopted the financial logic. The Romans conquered their territories but borrowed provincial taxation and the idea of a central treasury. Now the uncomfortable question: what does this 2,500-year-old story have to do with us? Everything. Strip away the royal titles, the stone reliefs, the gold coins. What remains is the fundamental truth. The Persians solved problems that modern nations struggle with today. The satrapy system. Today, it's federal states, provinces, cantons. You govern territory by managing revenue. The Daric. Today, it's reserve currency. The British pound played it in the 19th century. The US dollar plays it now. Nations adopt your currency because they trust its stability. Soft power. The Royal Road. Today, it's global logistics networks. The Treasury. Today, it's sovereign wealth funds. The Persians understood this 2,500 years ago. Who understands it today? China understands. Central planning, strategic reserves, infrastructure leverage, currency control. Long-term strategy measured in decades. The US? Debt upon debt. Not for crisis management, but for political convenience. Infrastructure is crumbling. Monetary stability is being ignored. Rome didn't collapse with legions, but by printing money and military debt. Spain drowned under silver because it couldn't learn Persian discipline. The Ottomans sank in tax farming and corruption. Armies are never the first to collapse. The balance sheet collapses first. For all their genius, the Persians weren't invincible. Later kings became more detached, more wasteful. They became isolated from the administrative realities that held the empire together. Satraps became too autonomous. Corruption returned. The treasury was mismanaged. When Alexander came, a military genius backed by a disciplined Macedonian state, Persia wasn't defeated heroically. It was defeated by a system that had stopped taking itself seriously. Empires don't collapse because of enemies. They collapse because they forget why their systems worked in the first place. So what does this mean for us? The principles the Persians discovered 2,500 years ago haven't expired. They're not antiquities. They're laws of financial gravity. Whether you're running a country, running a business, or building your own financial freedom, the rules are the same. Measure what matters. Standardize what you can. Build structures that withstand pressure. Prepare before the crisis. See financial clarity as power. Because history doesn't repeat itself. But if you don't understand it, it will crush you. Money doesn't speak. History speaks. Old money.